The nature and definition of terrorism varies globally and has changed over time. One constant, however, has been terror financing. Money launderers and terrorist financiers have been long able to exploit loopholes to orchestrate terror strikes throughout the world. Preventing terrorists from accessing financial resources is crucial to successfully countering the threat of global terrorism. India, a victim of many terror attacks, has been at the forefront of the fight against terror. Join us as we explore the biggest threat to global safety and see how India is keeping terrorist supporters and financiers accountable. The threat of terrorism has grown over the past few decades. India, unfortunately, has been a victim to many attacks and has experienced a serious loss of life and property in senseless violent explosions. New Delhi, alongside like-minded partners, remains committed to highlighting the threats that terrorism poses to global security. India recently hosted the No Money for Terror conference in New Delhi. The conference was attended by delegates from 72 countries around the world. Pakistan was not invited, and her all-weather friend, China, skipped the event. At the conference, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for penalizing those countries who support terrorism as part of their foreign policy. This was seen by many as an indirect reference to Pakistan.
It is well known that terrorist organizations get money through several sources. One source is state support. Certain countries support terrorism as part of their foreign policy. They offer political, ideological, and financial support to them.
Extremist groups continue to exploit violence-prone areas for safe havens. Recent attacks and disruptions in South Asia have highlighted the dynamic nature of the challenge of combating terrorism. Pakistan has often been accused of sponsoring and supporting terrorism, from financing to allowing some of the world's most wanted terrorists to hide within their territory. Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif, has also acknowledged that terrorism remains one of the foremost problems faced by his country. However, Shehbaz Sharif failed to admit that combating terrorism will require his government to impose stricter legislation against money laundering and terror financing. Moreover, this double-speak by Shehbaz Sharif is ironic, when his country still shields some of the most wanted terrorists in the world, Dawood Ibrahim and Hafiz Saeed being a few examples. Terrorism is sustained by finances generated from money laundering, drug trafficking, and donations from extremist religious groups. India has urged the international community to take action against terror financing.
India, along with like-minded partners, will remain committed and energetic to highlight the existential threats that terrorism poses to global security and stability. India reaffirms its commitment to strengthen international efforts to combat terrorism and terror financing.
4 years after Pakistan was initially placed on the grey list by the Financial Action Task Force, it was recently removed from the list of countries under increased monitoring. Despite this removal, many experts believe that Pakistan simply was able to check the correct bureaucratic boxes, and that there is ample evidence that Islamabad has only made limited progress on curtailing terror financing. Accordingly, the FATF's decision to remove Pakistan from the grey list has sparked concern and worry from many countries, fearing that without additional international pressure, Pakistan will continue to remain a hotbed for terror financing.
For sure it will not help. It will create more difficulties, and I know how India is impacted by terrorism, what kind of challenges it creates, and which kind of security environment India lives.
India, however, remains as committed as ever to combating terror and terrorism financing in Pakistan and throughout the world. India has reiterated that it is a collective responsibility to ensure that terror financing is being adequately curbed. India has been and will continue to lead the charge. Canada is reeling over Beijing's alleged spying and foreign interference in Canadian elections. The tensions between the two countries came to a head in a heated exchange between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at the G20 summit in Bali. Canada has accused China of targeting Canadian institutions and democracy. A recent report by the Canadian network, Global Television, alleged that China covertly funded at least 11 federal candidates in the 2019 Canadian general elections. Beijing's alleged interference not only created a storm in the Canadian Parliament, but has also created an increasingly hostile rift between Beijing and Ottawa.
This is really for me, an unprecedented situation from the Chinese side. So I look rather grim in regarding the future. That I think must expect more of such kind of statements.
China, under President Xi Jinping's leadership, has been accused of meddling in the affairs of foreign countries across the world. According to the American think tank, Council on Foreign Relations, China also appears to be increasingly interfering in U.S. elections through intensive lobbying, control of foreign media outlets, and sophisticated disinformation campaigns. A report filed to the Justice Department under the U.S. Foreign Agents Registration Act indicates that China has spent $280 million USD over the last 6 years to influence U.S. politics, more than any other foreign country. Beijing has spent years developing strategies to influence politics and elections throughout the Pacific Rim, and the trend seems to be growing. In Australia, for example, Beijing-linked donors directly paid prominent politicians in an attempt to steer Australian foreign policy more favorably toward China. China has also supported pro-Beijing businessmen and women to take over control of the majority of local Chinese language media in New Zealand, Taiwan, and parts of Southeast Asia.
China has a policy called gray zone warfare, in which information and disinformation are a key and important part, and this is played around the world. In that, having greater influence over the media organs of those countries, target countries, whether in the West or in Australia or any other country, India also included in that, so that the favorable communication comes out of these and looks as if it is genuine.
Many South Asian countries have also fallen victim to China's debt trap diplomacy. Beijing's interference into domestic politics in Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal, among others, has been increasing. In the recently held elections in Nepal, the Chinese Communist Party worked hard at unifying and supporting the Nepal Communist Party. The CCP aims to ensure that the Nepali government will support China on top issues of Chinese concern, such as Taiwan and Tibet. Beijing also seeks clear commitment of Nepali participation in their Belt and Road Initiative. China remains a significant threat to democracy throughout the world. If allowed to go unchecked, there is no telling which lengths an expansionist Beijing will go to in order to promote Chinese interests.